Aloha and welcome to Challenge Accepted, a podcast where every week we challenge each other back and forth to a new movie and show. I'm Thomas and I'm here with Frank.
Hey, everybody.
And today we are going through all of WandaVision because tomorrow we have Agatha All Along that premieres on Disney+. Man, it's been a while since I've rewatched this and it was a fun time. What about you?
Yeah, to me, it stinks of the pandemic, but then also it released in 2021. I was like, I could swear this released right in the middle of the pandemic. I mean, right? Anyways, I thought this was March 2020 kind of thing. It was the first thing I remember watching. What a weird time. Time doesn't exist to those couple of years. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's just like Westview.
Yes.
It's like, what is going on in this bubble?
But I knew I liked it back in the day. I knew thinking man, this is so game changing. And then revisiting, I'm like, yep, it holds up. It's still freaking amazing. It's so, so good.
Yeah, it is. And the way it starts off and the way it finishes are in completely two different places. Our characters all go on this crazy emotional journey. It was I remember it being emotional, but I don't remember it being this emotional.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it was just different in my memory, but it's such a deep emotional ride through this. And it's pretty sad for a lot of it. I mean, or I guess towards the end, but it's just so good. And it still feels Marvel, which is what, people always complain Marvel's lost their way. But this was a post-Endgame show, and it very much feels Marvel to me.
It was the first thing post-Endgame. And to me, what I love about it is the mystery box of it. From the first episode, you're watching this whole thing, you're like, I'm not really sure what's going on, but whatever. But then, of course, we get that mystery moment, and then those build on each other to try to solve what it is. And then when you do realize what it is, then you're trying to, then it's all Twilight Zone. And then all of a sudden, it's in a Twilight Zone where it's okay, here are the stakes. You actually do know what the problem is. Now, how do you survive it? And it's the thriller side of it, not the mystery side of it. So, well set up. I would say the last episode, maybe two, are full-on MCU Marvel movie. But up until those 2 points, we are very much in a Twilight Zone, or it's Shackman doing this, which is he's from Star Trek. He's very Star Trek-y in a lot of ways in these episodes. And Matt Shackman, of course, is going to be doing a lot of work for MCU in the future.
Yeah, I think that's going to bode well for the Fantastic Four because you're saying Star Trek. That's the vibe he's going for, and I'm super about it. So yeah, let's dive into it because I could talk about Matt Shackman all day.
Me too. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go over all the episodes, giving you guys a rundown of the show. That way, because we're going into Agatha All Along, we're going to be referencing Agatha a lot in this, obviously, and it'll kind of give us a little refresh on this. So let us begin. Episode 1, it's called Filmed Before a Live Studio Audience. This one's set in the 50s. It's black and white. It's sitcom. It's supposed to be very much Dick Van Dyke. And we're not entirely sure what's going on. We know that this, is post-Vision dying in Infinity War. We don't know what's happening here. At this point, Agnes, which is the neighbor, introduces herself as the friendly, kind of obnoxious neighbor, bringing over stuff all the time, whatever. And we all know
nosy neighbor.
Yes, yeah. Classic trope of the 50s comedies. In episode 2, Don't Touch That Dial, we transition into the 60s sitcoms. We see that there's this talent show. Again, in the first episode, we had a moment where the husband was choking and she started to plead for help, she started pleading for help from Wanda, which was wait a minute, why are you asking her? And in this one, we have this thing where there's a voice coming through the radio and it breaks a something going on. But yeah, very 60s, very Andy Griffith. In the 70s episode, the episode 3, we're now in color and we see the birth of Billy and Tommy, very important characters for Scarlet Witch. And then we see that Agnes is starting to display some suspicious behaviors, a little bit odd. She's caught whispering to Herb later on, and she seems to be a little bit interesting. She's concerned about Monica Rambeau being in the picture now. Episode 4, we are progressing on forward and let's see. I'm sorry, no, this one's actually with the Jimmy Woo, Darcy, and Rambeau characters, setting them up from the outside, giving us a visual. Oh my God, time's flying by.
Yeah, we got 30 seconds.
Yes. Episode 5. This one is set in the 80s. It's the family is kind of fully in run now that the kids have leveled themselves up to level 10, and it's cool. Episode 6, probably the most famous episode, is the Halloween episode. We have the brother now. He's not the right brother. And then episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall, very big episode. Now Wanda is fully revealed. Gosh dang it. Wanda becomes Scarlet Witch. I'll go with that.
Nice.
Oh man,
All right.
too much to cover.
We
in 2
almost
minutes.
there's too much. Yeah. Thanks for jumping on that grenade because I was like, there's no way I could get through all this and make sense. So you did a fantastic job for what we went through because, yeah, it's interesting in the show, right? It sets up something you're like, you're right. It's a mystery, but it sets up why are we in these sitcoms? And it just throws you right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, we're just watching Wanda and Vision live out their lives through these sitcoms. And then that episode 4 change. Now we're very much brought into the MCU of it all. We see that there's all these organizations that we're familiar with, in a sense, at least like Jimmy Woo's character that we knew from the Ant-Man movies, and he's investigating. And there's a certain Monica Rambeau, but, what has gone on with her? We hadn't seen her since the original Captain Marvel. So
She
it's
was
like
a
now
kid
she's all
back in
grown
that
up.
one too, so it was weird. Yeah, and then Darcy
Yeah.
we know from Thor.
Yeah, and then bringing Darcy in was just so cool. Like we remember her, and now she's a full-on doctor. So all of this stuff is just like, it's becoming very Marvel again, and it's just adding to like, why is this whole thing happening? Did Wanda set this up, or who set this up? And yeah, I love that aspect of it because it's just creepy enough on the inside and nostalgic enough, and it's just MCU enough to where it keeps like Marvel fans like me interested.
I remember in 2021 when I tweeted out saying like, I need a Disney Plus series that's about those 3 characters going around helping new superhumans popping up. And I still think that there's an option, maybe not with Monica Rambeau, but the other 2 for sure. Maybe we'll add a couple more to it, but not necessarily affiliated with S.H.I.E.L.D. or S.W.O.R.D., but going around and helping and like seeing the fact that like Wanda is actually hurting right now. She may be the enemy in the situation, but she's also hurting right now. That would be such a freaking cool show. Like their dynamic, the 3 of them, Jimmy Woo knowing magic now and stuff like magic tricks, and they're really cool characters that have been developed over the time of the MCU. And in this show, we get to see that they're full-fledged characters, have a directive, and I think it's setting them up for really big roles down in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And might be mistaken, but have we seen Jimmy Woo again? I feel like no, because he didn't show up in the last Ant-Man movie, right?
Yeah, he's not in Quantumanium. Yeah.
Yeah, they should have had him play a bigger role, I think, in phases 4 and 5 because he's great. Darcy's great too. It's like this was kind of one of the last things we see her in. Maybe she'll pop up in Agatha. But yeah, this really set the stage for all these other movies that we were about to see down the line. Although I think one of the big criticisms is what they did with Wanda after this show because, you're right. We see her as a hero and then kind of as a villain in this, but then also have like a little bit of redemption at the end. And then quickly into Multiverse of Madness, she's become a villain all over again. So yeah, I don't know. Did you feel like this was a good transition, I guess, for Wanda from this show into that movie?
I'm going to turn the question back at you here in a second. So what I feel like is happening here is that Scarlet Witch in the comic books is it's easily one of the most powerful characters, one of the more complicated characters. And so when you start to add that into the MCU, she's not as easy as Captain America or Iron Man. She has a very complicated backstory. More importantly, her backstory changes so many times, and it's changed from this. And when you add in the fact that they're trying to add these like Infinity Stones tied into her thing, it's not mutants at this point, right? You have that problems too. I think they're trying to stay true to how complex she is in the comic books while still fitting into what Marvel owned at the time. What do you think, as an X-Men man, what do you think about Scarlet Witch's interpretation here?
Yeah, I love it. And you hit the nail on the head. It's like we're very aware of the rights issues that were going on right now. I think at this time when this is being developed, it's like, what X-Men characters can we use? And the only reason they could use Wanda and Pietro in Age of Ultron was because they were technically Avengers also. Yeah. So it's like, it was skirting some lines. I think they did a fantastic job with the rights that they had and the way they were able to use the characters at this time. But I think it's fantastic. Scarlet Witch, it may be controversial to say, but was never one of my favorite characters in the comics. Always like seemed a little moody. Her powers always seemed a little too vague, and like she would just be ridiculously powerful and then get like knocked out by a punch. You're like, like, wait, what? How does this power scaling work? So, she was never that interesting. I think casting Elizabeth Olsen was like one of the best things ever. And we see like she got to develop over so many movies. I don't know if it just like if she was always a fantastic actor or if she developed it behind the scenes as these movies were going on. But man, what she brings to this WandaVision story is incredible, right? Because you totally buy into her in those early episodes in the sitcom life. And then she switches to mom mode and that works. And then you kind of get some office style, like talking head situations. And she's funny in that. I just think they killed it not only with the script in this and the way it was shot, but also casting her from the jump. It was just such the right choice.
I agree. Yeah. Modern Family. I find that last one is Modern Family.
Oh, that's a better one. Yeah. That's more accurate. Yeah.
Because even, we'll get into it as we're going into it, but I think let's stick with Scarlet Witch a little bit longer. But yeah, even the way they filmed it is with that technique, even the editing and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting. But going back to Scarlet Witch, I think if you're going to talk about her, you have to talk about the most famous thing she's ever done in the comic books, No More Mutants. And that has always been kind of I even revisited it mentally when I'm watching her fight Agatha again. And I'm just like, Agatha, you're so outclassed. Like the fact that you're holding her with those runes is Disney Plus being very nice to you right now. Because all she has to do is she's just that insanely powerful. And so, yeah, how do you depict that? And I do like that they reference the fact that she would have taken out Thanos herself if it wasn't for the fact that he used the Blitz mode or whatever, showing that even they recognize it. That she is actually the strongest Avenger, which Captain Marvel gets a lot of credit for that as well. I just think I think Elizabeth Olsen, coming from an acting family with both her sisters being actors as well, she was built to carry a role like this, something that's so big. And I know that in Madness, she's kind of depicted as like this full-on villain, but I think what it is she's just so confused and so alone. And rewatching this after watching that one, they really pushed the idea that she is alone without Vision, and now Vision is gone. And so she has nobody. And so she's trying to, and Agatha even says, like, you have all the power, you just don't have the knowledge. So she's gaining the knowledge, she's alone. What do you expect out of her? She tried to make this farm where nobody would go bug her. Here comes Doctor Strange to mess that up. And so it's like, there's so many things where it's like, just leave the being alone and you'll be okay. And people keep approaching her. It's a complicated character. I think the MCU is doing the best they can, and Elizabeth Olsen just nails it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and also I think jumping into Multiverse of Madness, there wasn't enough time establishing how strong the Darkhold is and how it really corrupts you and takes over you. Like, one of the easiest examples is like Lord of the Rings, right? As Frodo slowly goes on, we start seeing how he gets sucked into its evil and its madness and everything, right? So I don't feel like there was enough time, but there's a little bit of hint at the end, right? You're like, okay, you said it perfectly. She's super alone, but that Darkhold now wants to feed into every like evil thought you have and, your every desire. And we see at the end, hearing that Billy and Tommy's voice echoing out is just enough, because that was the family she created that she lost, and now she was able to make them. I love it. It was, kind of jumping back into episode 3. It's this really big change because all of a sudden she's pregnant. And you're like, whoa, that's different for the MCU. But also, like, in that same episode, all of a sudden she's giving birth, too. And I remember at the time watching this, and I was like, how are they going to approach this? This is Disney Plus. This is, a Marvel show. Like, how are they going to approach a pregnancy? And, they kind of do it in a very, like, tongue-in-cheek kind of way. But as a fan, too, from the comics, you know who's coming. It's Billy and Tommy, and you're like, holy crap, they're going for it. So this was also the start of like these young Avengers kind of being planted. Pregnancy planted. But anyways, it just like was this crazy kind of shift. And of course you can make something like that happen if it's like a bubble reality. It wouldn't make sense with like Vision. It would have been a harder thing to believe if it was like outside the hex. And so, I thought that was a really smart choice. But all of a sudden, you force Wanda into a whole new growth. Like, if you want to take a character on a journey, turn them into a parent, have them fall in love, or have them lose something great. Well, Wanda's lost everything. So give her something that, that's life-changing. And that really, I feel like, changes the whole story because she's now not just trying to fight for a Vision who wasn't even her husband at the start of the first episode to now I have a family to protect. And just really cool how this story keeps evolving as these like little 3-part arcs start happening.
Yeah, and there's a clarification at the very end of the series when Vision's asking when he's about to be, dissolved, who am I, what am I? And she says that you are a part of the Mind Stone that's still in me. You're my hopes, my dreams, my failings. You are so much her and what she found in Vision to fill that gap. That's what you are. And so those children are when you take what she was missing and what she is and add them together as her children. So I think for her, she sees her children as the perfect version of her. And so that's why I think from going on out, I mean, anybody who knows about Billy and Tommy in the comic books, they're very important characters. And that is her motivation forever. Yes. So it's really cool to see that happen. And then in the context of episode 3 I think the first time we were like, how do they, like the doctor comes back in, being carried by Vision. So like the doctor has to question that. He's not questioning it. Wait a minute, why not? And then you're starting to be like, why is Monica not getting this? And then all of a sudden Monica is getting it. As soon as she hears Ultron. So something's going wrong. And that's kind of the first, I think, hint to true mind control going on in this world. Not just, so something's like glossing over. And then you see Wanda react at the very end of the episode and you're like, oh shit. We're also confused. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And we're discovering what's going on, just like the characters are discovering what's going on. Like there's an assumption that Wanda is doing this, and rightfully so, but you don't quite know in the beginning. I really dig that. Yeah. I feel like I love that the little true thoughts of everybody starts peeking through here and there. And you're like, who and what is going on? It's just really well done. I think, again, we kind of shift over to, episode 4, and we start exploring some of Monica's backstory. Yeah. And we know who her mom is. Again, if you remember Captain Marvel, she was just a little kid at this time. What happened to them? How did she grow up? We see that her mom found Sword, which is like, that's who she's representing to investigate this whole situation. And you're like, okay, I know Sword from the comics now. It's just, but also like her coming back. Is this the episode where she kind of reforms after the snap and then ends up in the hospital?
And I think it's the first time we see post-snap, like the actual process of reforming, because other than that, it's in Avengers when the portals are opening up. It's in Endgame when the portals are opening up. But this is the first time we're actually seeing that where like the hospital's like, hold on, suddenly we don't have beds. It's got to be just full chaos.
And it is. I think it's still one of the best portrayals of somebody just flipping back. I would say like second place is Florence Pugh coming back in what was it, like Black Widow or something. But I
think Ant-Man did a good job with it too, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to remember all the places where they actually showed it happen. Yeah.
Right. But it was like, this one was done the best because it was so jarring. It was like, freaking out, like, hey, where's my mom? Oh, hey, sorry, honey, your mom passed away 5 years ago or 3 years ago. And you're like, what? This is just great. So I love that. How would somebody kind of engage in life again? Of course she's going to go back to the place that she was working for, that her mom set up, and we see that Hayward's in charge. And I think Hayward is, I give a lot of credit to this actor because he does such a good job of playing like the military-ish kind of dick who's like, I have to do this because this is what our organization needs or whatever. It's like very stereotypical in some ways, but he plays it really well.
It's a trope. It's a Star Trek trope for sure. It happens countless times in Star Trek, where like you have a perfect, like, how do you create villains in the Federation? Has to be one corrupt asshole. He's playing that for Sword. There's the one that we see in Deadpool and Wolverine that's in the TVA. There's always a couple of those. You need those to kind of spark that fun, and it's definitely something that happens in Star Trek all the time, where there's always a Federation commander or general. It's never a captain. It's always one of those that is actually working with the Klingons, and so. It takes a bit to realize it, but then when you realize it, you're like, gotcha, this guy's corrupt. This guy's out for his own. And of course, what he's trying to do is create Vision, a super weapon. And even when he has the option at the very end to like do something about all this, he's like, whatever Vision comes out of there, I'll be a hero for saving this asset. And when he's talking to Wanda later on, he's like, oh, this, $3 billion of vibranium you want to just put in the dirt. And it's like, that's her loved one, bro. And she's far more powerful than you are right now. So,
yeah, but it's so true. Like if Vision was real, right, and he did have $3 billion and all this insane AI that Tony Stark created, there's no way the government would let that just kind of but put in the dirt. So it's like I love these details in this show because it feels real and it feels grounded still. I know it seems like in some shows later on, as we'll see in phases 4 and 5, they start getting like way too fantastical, like putting Ant-Man, you know, whether you like the movie or not, it was a pretty interesting choice to put them in that microverse in the quantum realm and like away from like, maybe not the best choice, right? But this one still feels very much grounded because she breaks in this government organization and you have a character like Hayward. So yeah, from there, I think we go into kind of the 80s style episode, and it's more family ties. Let's see, there's tensions that rise between Vision, and he starts questioning his reality and existence. I'm trying to think of like more details in this episode because I remember at the end.
Well, I think that's the important part is we've been talking about, you know, Elizabeth Olsen's a great actor, but so is Paul Bettany. For me, he'll always be the Herald from A Knight's Tale. Every time I see him in anything, it's always that. But yeah, the way he kind of, all the acting in this series is very good because every actor is playing multiple roles in one character and, or multiple characters in one role, I guess. And he's doing this thing where he's like, Vision, not Vision, and trying to also hide his identity. And so when he's asking questions of people at work, he's like kind of balancing his own identity while trying to figure out their other identity. And that part where he unlocks his friend for a bit and his friend's desperate. Oh, man.
Yeah, he's the dude playing a dude disguised as another dude, pretty much, you know? Like,
so freaking true. But that's actually 100%
Right.
accurate.
But you're right. Paul Bettany is a legend. He's been in Hollywood for so long and never really got to step out into that lead role. So I think it was such a smart move bringing him in and allowing him to be another main character that drives the story. And arguably, he has some of the best lines in the whole show. I agree. Right? Like he's trying to be the dad, trying to comfort Wanda. And we see later on, he really, like in the memories part, and we'll get to that when we talk about that episode, but he just has some of the best lines and he gets to have so much fun too. When you were talking about the talent show episode, you know, and he gets the gum stuck in his parts and everything, and he's kind of drunk in a sense. That's very much to me A Knight's Tale. Him coming out and being like wild and crazy, and you know, like that's that A Knight's Tale character kind of brought into this whole scenario, and I dig it. I like give it so much props for that. But Paul Bettany is amazing, and I think it was such the right choice bringing him in. And at the end of this episode, I think episode 5, we see that he starts questioning, like, wait, why am I here? Why can I not remember anything before Westview? What are you doing to people? And he starts going up against her, and right before it fully boils over, we get the knock at the door, and we see Pietro, or fake Pietro.
So we're shifting into the mystery into the thriller side of things, right? Where now all of a sudden Vision's actually kind of afraid of her, but he's also Vision. He's a hero, so he has to figure out what's going on to these people and save the people around him. We see Pietro, and then we're trying to figure out who is he? Why is he the Fox version of him? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I remember when that happened, the internet was crazy for a week. Oh, everybody was. But everybody was like, oh my God, is this the first mutant? Or what are they doing with this? Because this was like right as they got the rights for Fox. I mean, like pen barely drying on paper.
Right. Yeah, and everybody loves Evan Peters' version, I think, of Quicksilver. He arguably has one of the best moments, like a top 5 moment in a Fox X-Men franchise. That scene where they're breaking out Magneto and he's running around the kitchen and just stopping things and pushing bullets was just insane. It made him overpowered, in my opinion, but he just it was still so sick. And so you bring him in, and you're like, oh my God, they're doing it. They're bringing the Fox universe into the Marvel universe. And so yes, to your voice, like, what is this whole situation? The speculation on this show week to week was just incredible. You know, like, why is it a sitcom? Why is there a beekeeper that pops up out of the sewer? Why did that helicopter? Why is that in color when everything else is black and white?
Yeah.
And
where's
why
Mephisto?
Where's Mephisto? I know that was like a major thing too. But it's why is Evan Peters Quicksilver here? And why does he not look like Aaron Taylor Johnson? And so it just was a really amazing turn. And I love how this sets up the next episode too, because it jumps right into like the Halloween episode, if I'm not wrong.
I would say it's probably the best episode. It was the one I was thinking about. I would first, like, the official recommendation for you is the finale. But I was like, if not, the Halloween episode is so freaking good. And so good. let's start about the cost. Let's talk about those costumes. We have Scarlet Witch in like comic book accurate Scarlet Witch, which is a fortune teller from Sokovia, and then we have Vision, who is actual Vision, and he is a Mexican wrestler. I guess is what we're supposed to believe.
That's what he says. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Everett Peters goes, "Oh, you're a stoplight."
Yeah.
I forgot what else he says, but it's just so good because if you look at the original drawings of him in the comic, it's pretty accurate. Like that's what somebody would look like if they just put an original Vision costume together. And it's just so good. The yellow gym shorts and like the red cape and just the green tights. It's just it's amazing.
And even Quicksilver ends up getting into his outfit too. And this is also the episode where we learn, the kids learn, I guess, that Tommy and Billy both have powers. And those powers mimic the brother and sister from before. So Billy has psychic powers, but we learn eventually that they will become stronger than Scarlet Witch at some point. And Tommy has super speed as well. So, those kids are so complicated in the comic books. It's nuts. I still love them though.
But and also, I'm not sure if Speed was, but Wiccan definitely was a founding member of the Young Avengers too.
Yeah.
So you're just like, as a fan of just Marvel Studios, but also of the comics, it's like, holy crap, they're starting a new regime. At this point, we still don't know, which is crazy to talk about almost 3 years later. We still don't know who the new Avengers are, but we have semblings, at least the start of a Young Avengers team. So you're just like, this is insane. And what better way for Tommy to learn about his speed powers than his uncle coming back? Again, we still don't know why it's not the Quicksilver that we know, but at least he has a surrogate uncle who's there teaching him about the powers, and they're doing nothing but bad things with it. They're stealing candy, they're breaking jack-o'-lanterns, they're silly stringing people, and it's just like, it's so cool to have those powers back on screen.
Yes. And I like how they filmed it too. Again, this is all filmed, I believe the 80s, or I believe the Halloween one is the first of, it is the first of the Malcolm in the Middle ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's based on Malcolm in the Middle. And so a lot of it is kind of like the distraught mom who's just like, I need a vacation kind of thing. And so when you have that...
The boys are driving me crazy.
Yeah. And when you have that party uncle come in, who is just another child, but he's bigger, it's fun to see like her hearing, I think it was like, I forget what it was, like she was hearing reports or something like that of people stealing candy, and then you just see them doing it in the background. It's like, this is like such Malcolm in the Middle fun. Like, this is exactly how you expect it to be filmed. And a lot of these are filmed that way. Like, they actually use the same cameras. Like, for the 50s episodes, they actually brought in old cameras. They actually brought in a live studio audience for those episodes. And so it is cool to see them use the same editing techniques and stuff like that too. You'd totally see this. And there's even like the kids, Wicked I know for sure would like cut to camera and talk like old Frankie Muniz used to for Malcolm in the Middle, would actually do the breaking the fourth wall, which is a lot of fun.
Which is so good. Yeah, it totally sets you in that mode. And like, again, credit where credit's due. Like, talk about how amazing Matt Shakman is that he can direct these different styles of episodes in one series, right? But I love that also that they went with like one director for the whole show. I think that was one of the smartest moves.
Something they don't do often, and we feel that actually. We see it in House of the Dragons as well, and I think it's a huge discredit to the overall vision, because this I don't think could be done with multiple directions. Yeah, I think honestly he probably made this story and then he's like, okay, I want to honor Dick Van Dyke and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. You're 100% correct. I feel the same way. But yeah, I think that was a very cool way to kind of transition. Meanwhile, their Vision is kind of going out and he's going through Westview and he's just noticing weird things. Like all of a sudden everybody just stops walking and there's a lady trying to hang things and she's crying. And I remember that being in the trailer and just being like, what is going on? Right? Like, this is weird. So this is him really like realizing and feeling like there's something truly wrong here. I got to go investigate. And he ends up seeing Agatha at the end of one of the last streets and she's doing something weird, just parked. He goes to talk to her. She doesn't even realize it's what's happening. And so we think. And it
was Agatha all along.
right. Which I have a funny, like, I kind of want to push against that because it's like, it was Agatha trying to figure out what Wanda was doing, but Wanda was still doing everything. So it's like, I love that song. And I think it just sets this perfect tone because all of a sudden it also makes us realize that there's another big bad and it's not just Wanda that's the villain. So anyways, I just have like some conflicting thoughts about that.
The reason I like that saying is because if it wasn't Agatha all along, We would never have left Leave It to Beaver. We would have never left Dick Van Dyke, because Agatha's the one that's been pushing against the entire time. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have Pietro back. We wouldn't, like, she's always been the thing it's not working. Why is this not working? Because the idea, subconsciously, she did not mean to do this. Wanda has made this perfect world, but for some reason it's not perfect anymore. Why is it not perfect anymore? It's because it's been Agatha all along pushing that.
Those seeds.
Yeah. She wants to see the full power of the switch. She can't let her just live out a perfect life. She has to see what's the power of the switch.
That's right. Yeah. So very true. Great points. Yeah. I just love how they added Catherine Hahn, and she slowly becomes more and more suspicious and just doing weird things. At this moment too, she's really kind of planting the seed and vision that he needs to like see what else is beyond this street or beyond the hex. Right. Mm-hmm. And this is finally where he breaks through, and we see that he starts falling apart. Like he's almost attached to the hex. And I remember watching this and just thinking like, what the heck? Like, why? Like, what is going on here? Darcy is trying to help him. But at this very moment, too, Wanda is also being antagonized by Pietro. So he's kind of saying the things as an audience we're saying, what happened to your accent? Why does it come and go? You know, she calls him out first and then he throws it back, which everybody has always said, you know, post Age of Ultron, it's like her accent disappears. So I just love that he's kind of like the voice for the audience. But also,
it does come back when she leaves the hex, by the way. I want to throw that out there real quick. Her accent comes back whenever she leaves the hex.
Yeah, that's true. Like all these little details, it's just so smart. It's so like she's kind of correcting things in her perfect world, and she's creating even herself in this different way. But you're right, because of all these little seeds Agatha is planting, she's kind of forced to confront them, and it's thus breaking the foundation of her perfect world. Yeah,
and then when Billy realizes that his dad's beyond the wall, or is hurting, that's what he realizes. Wanda knows what's going on and then expands the walls. And I just appreciate the idea of like turning the FBI and all their chaos into a clown show, into a circus. Was like, man, that's clever. And then everybody gets, absorbed in, and Vision's fine again. With many questions still, but at least now that he's safe. So that's kind of how we end that episode. Yeah. What a good episode.
Yeah, it was a great one. It's a great one. And I love Evan Peters. I think he was like it was just so smart. Again, wish he was somebody different after, he's revealed, but he brought so much fun to that episode.
Yeah. I wonder if he'll pop up in Agatha All Along.
Ooh, that'd be great.
'Cause that's his house, not Agatha's house. Just throw that out there.
That's true. And there was also a lot of talk about possibly, I know we're back at it. It wouldn't be WandaVision if we didn't talk about Mephisto, but there was some talks about Mephisto, since we know who Mephisto is cast as, with Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah. Here's the thing on that, though. Back then, even Shackman's like, I didn't even know about Mephisto. I wasn't making a story about Mephisto. I was making a story about these guys. So he didn't know about it. If you were to make another WandaVision because of the hype of the first one, you absolutely would add him. Just because, why not? Everybody's talking about him. It's huge. That's going to be a mic drop, so just add him. Yeah, I have a feeling he'll be in it.
Yeah, and he's confirmed for Ironheart. Like, not saying it doesn't they can't make it work, but like Ironheart, when it makes way more sense to be in a WandaVision, and the witches and Chthon and all of that stuff makes way more sense. So I know I'm expecting a little cameo at the end of Agatha All Along. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be. I don't think Ironheart or even Armor Wars has really fully confirmed themselves. I still think those and Blade, for some reason, like, let's just get these things made. But man, Disney's going through some stuff right now. Though. So episode 7, though, that's when we get into the Modern Family. Yeah, and Wanda tries to cope with the reality of everything's unraveling. This is when she needs that break. Agnes takes Billy and Tommy, and she's showing a lot of interest in the twins. And that's like at the point, too, where you're like, wait a minute, And this is also the moment where, and it's always so jarring when it happens, it's actually happened on Survivor twice, when the producer says something and the actor's like, wait, you're not allowed to speak. You're not supposed to speak or whatever. And she questions that. Now, the reason that's important here is not only is it jarring for the format, it's jarring because she controls everybody. And so how are you speaking to me right now? I didn't tell you to do that. So it's something out of her control, and in a world that's all her control. Very interesting.
Right. It is, yeah, totally. And all of a sudden, we've seen small cracks in her psyche, but this is the part where she fully kind of stops. And it's I think there was like one other moment with her and Monica where she just kind of like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Don't say anything like that. And this is another one of those moments, and you're like, okay, the walls are coming down. What's going to happen? Is this also the episode where the boys are already taken, so she goes to Agatha's house, or Agatha's house in quotes, and basically goes down into the basement?
Yes, it is. That happens. That transitions into that. She's looking for the twins. She goes down to the basement. We find out about the runes on the walls. And that's when we learn that Agnes is actually Agatha Harkness. Yeah, and it's Agatha All Along. Yeah. And that song kicks off, and I bought it on iTunes immediately.
yeah. Which is one of the best songs ever. I mean, it just also something about that feels very sitcoming too, so it still works with everything. Yeah. But I love how you said like she's kind of the wrench that is throwing this whole machine off, because I just think that's a perfect call out for Agatha. And just after that song, you already loved Catherine Hahn. At least I think most people did. But this just solidified, like, damn, she's perfect for this role. It's just like, she's so fun. She's so evil, but we actually like see her be evil in this episode now. And it's so good. You're like, what is she trying to do? Like, why is she throwing a wrench in these plans? And we see that the basement is so evil and witch looking and like cave like, and it's just perfect. I think this is also the episode where we get her origin story, where we see that it's back in Salem in the 1800s and everybody has like captured her, right? Or is that the next episode?
That's the next episode. It starts with that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But this is a good one. My favorite shot of like when they're doing that little reveal of how long she's been involved in things is when she's looking back in the WandaVision one, where we again heard the producer ask a question of her, and she's like, wait, why are you talking? We see that was Agatha asking the question, and it's her back looking back at it, and it's like, oh, that's such a good shot. That's such a damn good shot.
Dude, even the one where she's on the lawn and we see Evan Peters in the back.
Yep.
I love that part too. She's just having a picnic outside. It's just like, it's just so funny, and
then she ends up like, and I killed Sparky or something like too. It was like, Catherine Hahn, I'll follow you forever. I love her so much.
It just like really makes her feel evil, It's like anytime you hurt a pet, it's just like you're the worst person ever. So it was really well done. But we see like, okay, what's the plan here, right? I think that kind of moves us into episode 8, and this is where she starts bringing Wanda through the past. Like, how did you get so powerful? It's like, I've been studying magic for hundreds of years, and if somehow like you just have this ultimate power, you can mind control so many people. How did you do it? And we start going through a different past, and I love this because it's a history. I think a lot of us were wondering, it's like, yeah, we understand that the Mind Stone did something, but how? Like, how did Pietro all of a sudden get super speed, and she gets like ultimate domain over people's minds and reality, and she can shoot blasts and can fly? Like, it's just like, she's so OP, and it's just an awesome kind of way to show her origin story in a non-conventional way. Like, normally, your first movie, your first episode, whatever this is where the character starts. Now we're getting it in episode 8, and I just love how they did it.
Yeah, and it's also an introduction to this kind of magic, because before this, our only magic is with Doctor Strange, which is very temple, Tibet, study from books, monk magic. This magic feels almost like American magic, right? Where it's like, classic witches, Salem witch trials. So it's cool to see. And then the visual storytelling that they use is so perfect, where Doctor Strange you associate with like orange, yellow magic. Scarlet Witch is clearly red, and then Agatha has purple magic, and then we see the witches that are trying to attack her have blue magic. It's a simple color change, and it feels like Power Rangers level simple, but that works so effectively when you're seeing them fight it out, and all of a sudden you see the blue turns to purple. Who's in charge, who's winning this fight. It's just simple, and it's very cool.
It works out super well. I completely agree with you. And we've always known that Wanda's magic was red, but you're right. Like, we've only seen 2, maybe 3 different kinds of magic in Marvel to that point. And in Doctor Strange with the Time Stone, and then with his magic. And it's very like articulate, and it's very like set up, like they're like snowflakes almost. But Wanda's is very fluid, and I love that you called out, because this type of magic is more aligned with Agatha's magic, and it's kind of flowy and everything. And then we'll eventually get the definition of why her magic is red, and why why it's so unique,
Yeah.
because of the Scarlet Witch. But I just love that Agatha, because she's evil, and maybe the Darkhold is in there as well. Hers is purple. So you called it out perfectly. But yeah, we start seeing like, was Wanda, did she have magic the whole time, or did she have powers the whole time? We see that Tony Stark's bomb comes in, and we also see how her family lives in Sokovia. They're making it day by day. They're in a war-torn country, and like their release from all the stress outside of life is watching these old sitcoms. And it's just like a nice thing that kind of ties it back to the first 3 episodes. Why does she care about the Dick Van Dyke Show? Why did she make this world that looks like this? Well, it's because that's what her and her family would do to escape every terrible thing that's going on outside. It's just, so good.
And going back to what I had mentioned before, where the Agatha All Along is that she's ruining the plans. And I had said that if Wanda was successful, she would have stayed back in the Dick Van Dyke one, because her favorite show, she tells her dad, is Dick Van Dyke, and they don't. Everything else in that chest, he's there to sell. That's the whole job, is to sell those. That one's not in the chest. Right. That one's in the wall. That one stays with the family. So I kind of think like if she could fix everything, it would be that. And then before this, we're never seen somebody who has magic natively. Even in Doctor Strange, it's something that's taught. It's more arcane. Right. It's more, rune-esque. This is much more like grounded. And it kind of hints at like, wait, if she's a witch from birth, is she a mutant? We can't say mutant yet. We're not 100% there yet. And so when she actually is reaching out to the bomb to make it not go off, which right away Agatha calls it like, oh, it's luck magic, whatever. It can be assumed that she has native magic because she's the Scarlet Witch. She's like a destined Scarlet Witch. We know that she's, from comic books, a Nexus character. She's, or maybe, I don't know. I don't know if they've used Nexus in the MCU yet, but
but no,
they used the ad.
That's a great. They used the ad, exactly. So they even say it themselves. So, kind of. Yeah, kind of hinting at they know we're coming up to a multiversal story, but also I think this was the best use of like a Nexus being that we've seen, or like she's a great character to kind of latch this whole idea around. I wish they did more of that in like the different movies and shows that we've gotten in phases 4 and 5, but just, it just is, it's really well done. And I love your call out about, because she had this power without being taught it, is she a mutant, leaving that door open? Because we know that mutants are coming. But also like the comics have kind of flip-flopped on it too. Yeah. I'm in the camp that I like her being a mutant, and I like her actually being a daughter of Magneto. But if you read the new comics, it seems like they're fully moving away from that, which I'm not necessarily a fan of, but it works. As long as they find some connection to her and Magneto down the line, I'll be happy. But I love that there's so much established in these scenes, from how she grew up to why sitcoms, to is there power that she was born with, to, okay, why does she join, who's the organization? Why does she join Hydra? And we kind of see like, well, everything was taken away from her. Why would she be against Tony Stark and the Avengers? Well, because he killed her family and basically gave her a torturous situation for days. Like, of course she would join Hydra and try to take them down. So it like sets up so much that we've already seen in the MCU. And that it's just like a simple thing that we don't even stay there with, but it's just so good. So well done.
Going back to the visual storytelling, it's a story they've already told before, so they don't have to hammer it home anymore. But putting Stark on the side of that missile right away tells you, like, that's right, Stark changed himself. That's right. In Spider-Man Homecoming and in Secret Invasion later on, there are forces out there that think they're doing good by fighting against the guy who made all the military weapons out there, and they're bad guys, but they're rooting, like, they have a good cause. So it's
a good reason.
Yeah, MCU has set up certain signifiers, like when we see a shield or something like that, like one of the shield symbols, we know what that means immediately. And in this case, we know right away, like, oh, this is why she's a bad guy. This is why she teamed up with the bad guys. It doesn't mean that she's a bad guy.
Yeah. And it's awesome because it's like a lot like the comics. That's kind of how her foundation was. She wasn't necessarily like a good guy off the bat either. So just like, I know Jeremy Renner didn't love his intro into the MCU as Hawkeye, but I mean, it still kind of was like the comics. He was a bad guy first, then joined the good guys. And it's very much the same way here, but you're justifying it. It's like, Thanos reason. Like Thanos reasoning, like, isn't wrong. It's just like the way he's going about it is completely wrong, right? It's like hers is kind of the same situation. So I love it. I think this does such a good job. From there, what's the next memory we jump into?
So yeah, from there we're going into, Petrov is dead. I think it's the next one's next. No, it's where she gets the secret. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Tell it.
Yeah. They go in the secret room and we see that there's like the Hydra scientist, and then there's the staff. There's a scepter that we saw from the original Avengers in there. Yeah,
Tesseract.
No, Tesseract is the square. I think that's like that's different. The scepter is something different.
Yeah, it's the mind gem inside of it.
Stone.
Okay. Yeah, Tesseract space. Oh, God, who remembers those old school Avengers ones? Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right. But yeah. But it's interesting, because that Mind Stone will also be then connected to Vision, and that will also become a part of her that she then uses to create this new version of Vision. So it's really cool. We get to see, and talk about a Vision, while she's going to interact with the Mind Stone, she sees a vision of herself as the Scarlet Witch. Right. So it's just cool, like these representations, the way they sync it all together, but also it seems traumatic. She's in these like in a jail cell, and the only comfort again is old reruns on TV. And it just kind of like, every other person that's went and touched the scepter has died up to this point, but she doesn't. And it unleashes something inside her.
Well, and not just that, but also it's evidence that she's the Scarlet Witch in a way, because if she wasn't born with this native power, she would have died like everybody else. But because she's born with those powers, is why she's able to withstand it. It's very much, why Hulk is able to survive the snap. And so I like that it's not giving her powers. It amplifies her power maybe, but it doesn't give her powers, because it leaves it back to the fact that, like, I think we're at a stage now in the Marvel universe, in the MCU, where they're trying to say, like, the Infinity Stones are amazing, but they're over here now. And with this one, we're showing that she was already going to be Scarlet Witch. She didn't get it from the Stones event 100%. Vision no longer has a stone in him. Loki sees a bunch of stones in an office drawer as like they're trash, essentially. So like they're kind of saying, we're done with this gems. Let's go on forward to the multiverse.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I kind of reason the way it shows her powers kind of being unlocked, kind of like Deadpool. Like Deadpool, he signs up for this thing because he wants to try to cure his cancer, and then it like messes him up, but at the same time gives him the ultimate healing effect and immortality and all that stuff, right? Like this just unlocks something that was already in there for her. Very much like a mutant. So again, kind of leaving that door open.
They're trying to not say it, but they're saying it.
And I respect it. I love the way it's done. I think it's still done super, super well. And then from there, where do we move on? Like I
think that's the one where it's her and Vision on the bed talking to each other.
Yes. Now we go into she goes into the Avengers compound, and it's one of the most emotional things at this point. She talks about she's lost her family, she's lost Pietro. We know that at the end of Age of Ultron, Vision saves her, and she's brought over there. She's in a new country, she's alone, and again, reruns of old sitcoms is her comfort. And he does a very Vision thing that we had seen him do in other movies. He just kind of phases through the wall and like pops in on her. Hey, how's it going? But this conversation, I think, is just like, shout out to the writers of this scene in particular, because it's just so wonderful what they're able to do. He's trying to relate to her. He's like, I don't have loss. I've never loved anybody, so I can't lose anything like you. But he says the line, I don't know, do you want to drop it?
Go for it. No, you go for it.
Oh my gosh, this like still gets me all the time, where it's like, what is love, or what is grief if not love persevering? And it's just so well done. And yeah, you're right. And it gives hope to grief. Like it's just it's a weird thing. At some point, hopefully, at some point we're all going to lose somebody, and it's going to be tough. Mm-hmm. And life is fragile, and it's not permanent, and it sucks no matter who it is, especially if you care about somebody. But giving a bright side to this traumatic feeling that we have in this moment is just like, it's wonderful, and it comforts her in this way. And I think it's a comfort to all of us. But having this person who's not even human relate to this emotion and give such a positive outlook on it, it just like it makes Vision more human than anybody. It's just it's amazing. It's so well done.
And in the context of just in the middle of the pandemic too, hearing those lines too, when so many people are losing so much, not including just our social lives, to hear that's like, oh man, that's so true. That's what we're all grieving. We're in a stage of grief. And that's the case. And then we're trying to figure out, why do these two work together, right? Even in the comic books, to me, there's always kind of been, why do those two work together? And in this case, I find that Scarlet Witch, that Wanda is always seeking an elevated humanity, and in Vision she sees it. Somebody who's just a good person, doesn't understand why we have to fight. Why does it have to be this way? And she sees the part of her that completes her. And in Vision, he's exploring and he's interested. And then with Wanda, she's so broken and so fragile and so interesting that intellectually he's just attached to her. I like how when she's sitting there, she like calls like, Vision, I know you're watching, essentially, and he's like phased in the wall, and he's like, oh, I was just coming by or whatever. So it's like he was watching her through the wall, and she knew it because she could feel him, which is mentioned later on, that she could feel his mind. So his mind is real. God, those two, it's a good couple. It's a good couple.
It is. I love that you call that out. Yeah, it's he doesn't have any loss, I guess, as he says, so he's stable too, and he did find the best parts of humanity. That's why he stops Ultron, and he sees the best in her when everybody else is afraid of her. Like Tony Stark is like, I had to put her in a room, and they're like, Tony, you can't do that, you can't imprison people, that's the whole reason Civil War happens. But it's like, he sees the best in her, and he's just so himself. Other people are still trying to figure it out, and they're conflicted because of their past and stuff, but that doesn't matter to him. And there's another reason why they work together. He wants to bring out the best humanity, and she wants somebody who just is truly themselves and can see the good and just is good, like you were saying. So it's a couple that shouldn't work, but it does. And you're like, I just want to keep seeing them in these relationships, and that's why it makes it so hard at the end, I think, in that last episode. But gosh, that scene, I think, broke the internet, and it broke so many people's hearts, like all over the world, just them sitting in that room. Oh, so good.
And then remember, Billy and Tommy, those two combined. And that's something that shows how cool those future characters that we're going to be seeing a lot more in the MCU, possibly very soon, how important those two are, because they're like the perfect two people when they combine together. I'm excited for that. I'm a big fan of Billy in Young Avengers. He's such a powerful character. And then like what he does as the co-ruler of space, does he actually get the title? I don't know, but he's very important later on as time goes on. So I'm a big fan of Billy's character.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm happy if that means that we're getting Hulkling in there too. I love Hulkling. He's such a weird character too in a lot of ways, but like so awesome. And they do some really cool stuff with him. And I like that relationship between Hulkling and Wiccan. So I'm excited about it. I mean, I also like, Speed, who is, just kind of like his uncle in a lot of ways, but is, but a new version of it. And they kind of have less of the trauma that Wanda and Pietro has because of Magneto and everything. So he
has a very, cool. Not so much Barry Allen, but God, what's his, now I said it. I
Wally
can't
West.
Think of it. Wally West. He has a very Wally West attitude, which I love.
Totally.
I used to read a lot of Flash comic books, and it kind of was like, oh, hey, I get that.
But he's like bubbly and fun, and he's still trying to figure it out. Yeah.
Off topic a little bit. I keep hearing people say like, oh, now that they introduced Hulk's kid or whatever, they're just going to make him Hulkling. They better not, because that is a totally different character. And Hulkling is so much more cool, or such a cooler character, being Kree, Skrull. Yeah, don't mess with, who cares about Hulk? Hulkling is, they thought he was a Hulk is the reason they gave him that name, not because he's actually anything to do with Hulk. But just stepping in real quick on that one, get my voice, my opinion.
I hear you. So many questions. If we ever do a She-Hulk rewatch, so many questions that I still don't understand about that show or the process or whatever, the decisions that were made in it. Yeah. So confused. So yes, we need Hulkling. Okay, I'll just leave it at that.
That's perfect. All right, let's wrap things up with episode 9. What's that?
Yeah. No, I was just agreeing with you. I think this brings us to the finale, and this to me feels, this is a very Marvel-esque finale, and they'll kind of lean in this direction, I think, for a lot of the Disney Plus shows, where you kind of get an epic battle, and it's kind of leading things into the next thing. Honestly, I feel like they should have taken so many more notes from this finale. I know at the time a lot of people didn't like it because they're like, oh, they had to end with this big battle. But honestly, that's one of the reasons why I like Marvel, is that we get to see these. Yeah, we get these characters, and they're now at the height of their powers, and they're getting to have that final showdown. And we see that also there's a smarter element to it where Wanda uses the ruins, but she's kind of battling this new threat as Agatha is trying to threaten her kids, and she's also stealing her powers. And then Vision has his own thing going on with the White Vision showing up, which is so cool that they brought in that character too.
Yes.
Why don't you take it away on like what you thought about the Agatha battle with Wanda?
Yeah, that's a cool battle because Agatha's unique little ability is that she's able to siphon powers, which we saw with her coven earlier on. And so she's trying to siphon all the powers out of the Scarlet Witch. And I almost question, would that be bad? Because we know that through the prophecy that the Scarlet Witch is meant to destroy the world. And Agatha's just a witch. So if she takes away the powers of that, then like, who cares? You know, it might nullify that problem we have coming up. But anyways, during this fight...
No, you're right. Wait, on that note though too, it's like I agree with you. I thought the same thing after rewatching. I was like, what would it be so bad? The only reason why it's kind of bad and sad in a way is because that would mean she definitely loses Vision and she definitely loses the kids. But we don't know what's going to happen at the end of this yet.
Yes, and we are really looking through rose-tinted glasses, rooting for the Scarlet Witch. Exactly. The Scarlet Witch is too powerful to exist in a lot of ways. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, there's a whole thing too where like I can't remember his name, the general or whatever, Hayward is saying like we would be irresponsible if we didn't take Vision and dismantle him. And it's like, you're right. He's a super weapon. If an adversarial country got a hold of him, Hydra got a hold of him, we'd all be screwed. So you're right. It's your job to dismantle him.
Yeah, if he just wanted to be Ultron, he could do that too.
He's built to do that. Exactly. So anyways, okay, going back to the fight, the idea that she just learned 1 ounce of knowledge for magic about the runes and then was able to replicate it on such a grand scale shows the Scarlet Witch. And if she could get a hold of that Darkhold or any sort of text to learn more about it, shows like, holy cow, this is going to get escalated fast. And I think that was just such a cool little reveal. I remember watching that and like, recognizing the moment like, okay, they've left WandaVision behind. Now we're in a Marvel movie and saying, that's awesome. That is so cool that she was able to pull that off. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was so well done, and it was just kind of like teased. And I love it when like a little tease comes back in such a big bad way, and the hero then uses it to turn it around on the enemy. I mean, all that was so good. But we also get a moment where she gets to go into Agatha's history too. Like Agatha was going into Wanda's history. Now Wanda goes into Agatha's, and we see her with the Coven, and Agatha still's fighting back. She's able to turn the zombie Coven and try to attack Wanda, but Wanda is able to push back, kind of like fully forcing and overtaking her on the power in the real world and in like this dream world. And it's just cool. Like it's a battle on multi levels, kind of like I think what they were doing in Multiverse of Madness, but I think this did it better.
Yes, they handled this very well. The visuals of this looked a lot better. Yeah, Agatha is definitely holding her own, but that's merely because Scarlet Witch doesn't know what she's fighting yet or how to fight this yet. And as Agatha starts to realize that, she's starting to, oh shit, I'm barely holding this battle, and I think she's starting to fall back behind. It's really cool towards the end when she loses her powers, and then all of a sudden she's sitting there, and the way she falls to Earth, I remember thinking like, oh, she has to have some power left, but like she just looks so helpless now, and I was like, oh, okay, she's lost for sure.
Right. Yeah, she's done. And I think it's great. Catherine Hahn plays it awesome. She goes from like fully maniacal and evil to like, I'm going to get this power, to thinking she's winning, to then, oh, I'm definitely losing, to loss, to all of a sudden flipping back into sitcom or Agnes, right? And it's just like,
what do you think about that moment?
Catherine Hahn kills it. It's not my favorite, but also like I do appreciate what she's able to do in that. Because it is like it's a little cheesy for me in some ways, but also it's like, dude, only Catherine Hahn could kind of play all these different roles in one, or like these different ways of playing this role in one episode and still make it work, or at least make it entertaining. And it's so entertaining.
God, I mean, Scarlet Witch again is such a complicated character, but when she does that, I'm like, you are a villain right now, because you know the torture you're putting on everybody else. You got confronted with it earlier in this episode or the episode before, and you're putting her back into it. Like, you are being a villain. And Catherine Hahn, the way she plays it off, she has like the water in her eyes, like she's, because all of the characters who have been released say they feel that they know that they're missing, that they're fighting back. So Catherine Hahn is in there Agatha is in there fighting Agnes, and she knows that she just been locked up by the most powerful witch. And it's like, that is torture that you're doing.
Right. Yeah, that actually brings up this point where everyone's like, there's so many Scarlet Witch stands out there. There's so many Scarlet Witch stands.
Oh, yeah.
And this is one of those moments too, like we know she's mind controlling everybody and it started because of her grief. But when everybody starts waking up and saying like, let me just be free. Let me just say hi to my daughter. If you won't let us free, just let me just kill me. Right. And then she starts choking everybody. Yes. That's the moment where I'm like, wow, okay, she is a villain. And she's been talking about it like maybe I am the villain, but they're both villains. We're watching both of these villains fight for power and fight for what they want. It's fully, I guess it opens that door more for that when she puts Agnes back into the mind control thing, it makes more sense. But totally. She's a full-on villain in this. And anybody who doesn't see that going into Multiverse of Madness maybe wasn't watching as closely or, she's just such a sympathetic villain. You want to root for her.
But she's very selfish too. She's trying to protect her family. Vision, like we see the extent that it goes. If it wasn't for Vision, who was being Vision, that small part of her, she talks about stuff like that. That's the good part of her. If it wasn't Vision being Vision, would she have ever stopped? He's the one that pushed the gates to try to get outside and had really pushed her to do more. So, I think if she's not surrounded by Vision and other people who help her, she might go fully off the edge.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect segue too for Vision being Vision.
Yes.
We get one of the greatest, it's such an awesome fight too, because we really didn't get to see Vision go all out. He kind of gets his ass kicked in Infinity War. He's gone, in Endgame. And so this time you really get to see what his power would look like if he just was going all out. They're slamming each other into the cement, laser blast, phasing in and out of each other, using the phasing to hold on to it, which was so cool. It reminds me of this My Hero Academia character, Lemillion. But anyways, it's just the coolest thing. And it ends with a discussion on the ship of Theseus and what is Vision or who is Vision. And I think it's just so cool. If you replace all the parts, if I have no actual original parts from Vision, am I still him? Even though I have the memories, you have some of the original parts, but you don't have the memories. So are you Vision or am I? And it's just this interesting thought process of just deep dialogue that you would not expect in a Marvel finale. Because the way this battle ends is a battle of thought. Is a philosophical conversation. And I love it. I'm such a fan of philosophy. I'll randomly go on different YouTube videos and listen to different Socrates or Aristotle, and I'll just kind of hear their thought process. But it's just such a random thing from this MCU show, and it just provides so much depth. And Paul Bettany having this conversation with himself, acting off of himself, is just so good. So good.
I've said it too many times. This is a Star Trek ending. It boiling down to a philosophical debate is, that is straight up Next Generation Voyager. I love that. And then they answered the philosophical question as well, because when they're both discussing, well, which one is the ship, which one is not the ship, they're both. And then Vision says it's the rot that's actually the story that created the tale. It's the wood that was touched by. So in doing that, it's not Vision, it's the memory that Vision has made with Scarlet Witch, with Wanda, with the Avengers. That's what makes Vision Vision. And so that's when he you have it inside you. I'm a manifestation of her. So let me unlock it in you. And now Vision is fully unlocked within the White Vision body and can fully explore. I wonder if White Vision, I hope they go with I think it's Tom King that made it, that comic book where he starts his own family. I hope we kind of get that story out of it, because we know we're getting a White Vision spinoff too after Agatha All Along.
Yeah. At least I know they pulled, and I'm blanking on the name, I should have looked this up before, but they pulled WandaVision directly from the story where him and Wanda do start their own family, and they have these android kids and stuff, and they kind of merge those things. But I think this was a great introduction for why we have a White Vision and why we can see White Vision. I fully think that not only are we getting Vision Quest, but I fully think that we're getting a White Vision in the Wonder Man. I could see him popping up. Sure. Part of the West Coast Avengers. I think for sure we're going to see him in Wonder Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another movie where I'm just make it already, guys, or show. Just make it already. Stop dragging your feet on this.
Yeah. It's been filming. A report. The there's confirmation it's been filming in Hollywood. So yeah, who knows when we'll see or hear anything about it, but it is cool that we have this whole new Vision that's able to come back, and Wanda's still very well. Right now she's dead. We haven't seen a body, but
nobody believes that though.
Yeah. I
would love for somebody to go up to Kevin Feige and he's like, so when are you gonna see WandaVision again, and just see what his reaction is like. If he actually says like, oh, she's dead, bullshit. She's one of the most powerful people in the MCU.
Totally. It's gonna be like one of those Andrew Garfield, like, I don't even know about Spider-Man. I'm not in Spider-Man. What's Spider-Man? You know, like
that's like Andrew Garfield right now is going around saying like, I'm not in Spider-Man 4, guys. And it's like, no, we don't believe you anymore.
No one believes you now.
You're a liar. Oh man. So Agatha's at the end of this stuck in her Westview body. We see in the trailers that in the beginning of the next in Agatha All Along, she's going to be basically doing the mayor of Easttown, or she's going to be a detective, right? She's going to be like a detective, True Detective style. They're literally using those images, and so that'll be interesting to see how she transitions from being the neighborhood person to this detective. Like that's even a transition. Who's involved in that?
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, this whole new series is about her rediscovering her powers. I think it's an interesting premise. Obviously, love Catherine Hahn. I think she killed it in this. It is funny though, because this is a story about us trying to see a villain get their powers back. You know, it's like she's not a hero either. So it's going to be funny how they make us root for her. I mean, again, Catherine Hahn's so lovable, it's probably going to be easy, but it is interesting. I was thinking about that. I'm like, she's a bad guy, and we want her to get her powers back. Why do we want this? So I'm curious to see what the show does.
I think that she's going to turn on everybody that she's with. I think Aubrey Plaza might be the only one that she doesn't turn on, maybe, because I think Aubrey Plaza is just as evil. But that's just the actor's very good at that. I can see her doing that. I think there's a new trailer that dropped today. It's actually the final trailer for Agatha All Along, obviously. And in it, she specifically says in a line like, the Scarlet Witch stole my powers, and now I'm going to go get it back. So she still has that animosity, of course she would, for Wanda. And I hope by the end of this series, she still does. Because I do like the idea of there being a foil out there for Agatha. Or for Wanda.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I agree. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, I definitely think she's getting her powers back, but for a lot of people, they knew Agatha because of the Fantastic Four. Right. She ends up becoming the nanny for them. We know that we're getting the Fantastic Four. A certain Reed Richards did mention his kids already, so we know somewhere in the multiverse they exist. I would love to see Catherine Hahn and Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby, and somehow them not realize that she's this evil witch, but now she's kind of like manipulating the kids without them realizing. So I hope that they just make that connection. That'd be awesome.
I love the idea of Agatha babysitting Wiccan, one of the strongest sorcerers in all of Marvel. And in the comics, she babysits Franklin Richards, probably the strongest anything in all of Marvel, who literally creates realities. It's just like
on a universal scale.
And I'm just a witch that babysits. That's fun.
I know, it's fun. And bringing her up anywhere, I think is just going to be a great time. So I'm super curious about this show. I will say I'm going into it with like low expectations. I don't have I don't need the show to be mind-blowing. I just need it to be entertaining. I need it to be a fun ride and provide the spooky vibes as we go into Halloween. So, this is, I'm just excited. I think we're in for a ride, a fun ride.
Yeah, I think that's the same way I'm going into it as well. It's just like, hey, it's going to be a fun romp. I'm not going to expect any MCU changing things. And I think I was expecting that too much out of WandaVision. It was still fantastic, but of course that was a letdown when those things didn't happen. Loki was the same way, where it's like, I'm expecting this to happen. And so in this one, let's just enjoy the fun ride. The hell of a good actors and stuff like that, so that'd be good.
Yeah, the cast is phenomenal. They're bringing back so many people. Yeah, it's going to be a great time. And WandaVision, just so well done. Just Jack Schaefer creating that for the TV. Yeah. Matt Shackman directing every episode, to Elizabeth Olsen showing so much range, to Paul Bettany like breaking our hearts as an android, to Catherine Hahn just being this like hilarious villain. I mean, it was so well done, and it was so needed, I think, to what we said earlier, just at this time in what was going on in the real world with COVID and everything. So it was, really well done show.
I've got a few fun facts. Let's get those in, and then we'll get into our grades.
Fun facts.
Yeah.
do it.
So let's start on those. First one for the 50s episodes. Director Matt Shakman, and Kevin Feige met with Dick Van Dyke to make sure it was as accurate as possible. So they actually met with the old man, Dick Van Dyke.
That's crazy. Yeah, you mentioned the cameras and everything too.
Yep.
I don't know if you've ever seen, maybe we should try to post it, but some of what Vision was, or Paul Bettany was painted like. So in order for them to get the Vision look for black and white, he was like blue and gray, not like purple and silver. So it was so interesting. He looks so creepy how it's changed and stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was another thing that worked with those cameras.
That was a common thing back in Hollywood back in those days, is to change the color of it to make it look like the color you wanted. There's a Simpsons joke I love where like they kind of go further than that. They're like, yeah, if you want it to look like a horse, you have to get 50 cats and paint them or tape them together. And if you want it to, like, you know, because the camera's always a little different. The aspects ratio changes depending on what era we're watching. So 4:3 in the old one, and then even when we leave from. There is one of the episodes where we leave from Westview into the outside, and in the outside it goes to the MCU, which is, I think it's the 16.9. It changes to the widescreen, and it shifts back and forth, back and forth. The first time we leave to the other one, it actually gradually does it to let the audience know that there's a change happening, and after that, it happens automatically without you paying attention to it.
That's super cool. They were baiting us the whole time. That's amazing. Yep. I did notice that this time too, because I was like, wait, what are these black bars on the side of my TV? Like, what the heck? But yeah, it totally fits like that old TV aesthetic. And I mean, you could see it even if you go back and play old video games from like PlayStation 1 or GameCube or whatever. It's like they work better on a smaller aspect ratio TV rather than like a widescreen TV. So yeah.
I could really go into that. That's something that we've actually talked about on pushing buttons one time. It's very interesting how that works.
Yeah.
That not only did they have era accurate cameras and lighting, but they also did costumes and props, even getting old vintage fabrics to make the costumes with, which is pretty impressive.
Wow. Yeah. That is so impressive. Because I remember, like, even in was it the first or second episode where she's making the dinner, all of that stuff is like wire work that you used to see in like Bewitched and all that things. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, you can tell like there's somebody, behind the scenes who are like lifting up a fishing rod or something to make everything float. It's
all
great.
The editing was done the same way too. So like for the Modern Family episode, the same zoom ins and the way they would pan the shot to the side. Yeah, is all to how Modern Family would do it. That is crazy detail that either you're a nerd like us who pays attention to that, or you're just not realizing how much this feels like Modern Family or feels like Malcolm in the Middle, which is just magnificent move. Let's see. I know I had one more. Where did it go? Oh, here it is. Agatha All Along actually became number one. It was written by the person who did the Frozen song, by the way. Let It Go.
Wow.
Yeah, and it became number one on iTunes the week that released on WandaVision.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, we're still hearing it all the time now, too. It's coming back up because, I mean, what do you think about the title? Like, do you think that they always knew it would be Agatha all along? Or no? Because you remember, like, as this show was coming up, there was like Agatha Coven of Chaos, Agatha something. There was like all these different names that, and then it felt like they were just messing with us. They were just like teasing the fans to then all of a sudden it'd be Agatha All Along, like kind of calling back to this song and the name. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, like we've seen so many times before with this recent era of the new Bob Iger stuff, is he's like, why the hell are we doing this? Just go to what we already know that works. Because when they changed the title for the Agatha All Along again, they did the song and then they showed like clips of her like poking in. That was very like purposely clip arty. And I was like, you would have had Catherine Hahn film something announcing that name change. You would have done more than just that little, social media move to change that. So I don't think it was on purpose. I mean, I don't think it was always meant to be that way. I very much think it was like, look, we're refilming Daredevil to be like the Netflix show. We're redoing, I think it's that. So what do you think about it?
Somehow that just works for Marvel too. Like they put things together that shouldn't be put together and it works and it ends up being great most of the time. Yeah. I'm sure this is going to work out awesome too. And man, I can't wait to start watching the show. So good to have like a new Marvel thing to dive into.
You're telling me. Let's go ahead and give this a grade. I actually kind of want to give it 2 different stars systems. I would say like the first half of the, I'll do a happy medium, but the first half I would say is 5 out of 5 stars. The second half I would say is like a strong 3.5, probably just 4 out of 5 stars. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you're right, because it does feel like two different shows, and yet it connects. I feel like I'm just gonna go 4 out of 5 overall. But
Yeah,
you know, I'm
cool
kind of
with
on the same track as you. But like, yeah, it starts off so strong and so mysterious and everything, and I think there are big payoffs. But yeah, I don't know. It's so sad. It's not rewatchable for me as much as some other shows are. So I'm just gonna stick with 4. And if I watch it like one time a year during Halloween, that's good. Or one time every couple of years, I think I'm good there. So yeah, I'm gonna go with 4 out of 5.
All right, there it is, 4 out of 5. So that puts WandaVision behind us. We're going to be covering Agatha All Along every week as it comes out. So please join us with that. The first episode's coming out Wednesday at 6 p.m. on the Pacific West Coast there. But other than that, what else am I going to be watching this week?
I don't know.
You're supposed to challenge me.
I don't. Wait, did I pick this one?
No, I picked this one.
What was the one before this? Parks and Rec. And you picked that.
No, the one before that was Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice. Did I pick
And
that?
you picked
You're right. I don't know. I don't have anything. God dang it. Frick.
You know how many times I edit out you not knowing what you're going to challenge me to?
I don't. Yeah. Dude, send a reminder. Hey, you're picking. Dang it. Let's see. What? Oh man. What do I want to go with? Short Obsession. Oof, I don't want to watch that. All right, I'm going to go. So for this week's recommendation, I am going to go with The Hangover. I haven't seen that in a while. I want to watch something kind of funny. So yeah, I'm going to go with The Hangover.
That's a good one. I'm watching Only Murders in the Building, the new season, and Zach Galifianakis is in it. And he even talks about how like, I was in his biggest comedy ever, you know? So yeah, that's cool. That's perfect. Yeah, I love that.
Nice.
That was one of those movies when it came out. Like I remember watching it at my friend's house and we were just like, let's just watch it again. And we did. We just watched it twice in a row. That's great.
Nice. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Nothing like it. It was so funny. It was ahead of its time. Or like, God, it was in this crazy era. Can't wait.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Again, hang out with us as we cover every episode of Agatha All Along over the next few weeks. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Aloha.